Okay. Welcome to our webinar today. Topic of our webinar today is healing sprint planning. We will work in a webinar format. This means we will go through the presentation. I will present it to you, and after the presentation, we can go into your questions. You can ask your questions, and I will try to help and support you. So, we will speak today about sprint planning as event and healing sprint planning. We will discover some anti-patterns which exist in sprint planning, and I will try to give you some tips and tricks what you can try in order to overcome these anti-patterns. Couple of words about me. My name is Yevgen Domchenko. Everyone calls me Jack. It's much more easier. I am an agile and system coach, leadership consultant, and I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org, working with my own company, Do Stride Training, Coaching, and Consulting. So, sprint planning. Before speaking about anti-patterns, let's discuss what is actually sprint planning. So sprint planning is one of 5 events in Scrum, and intent of this event is to plan the sprint. Time box for sprint planning is maximum 8 hours, and sprint planning is an opportunity to inspect and adapt. If we will take a look on sprint planning flow, what we will see is actually 3 questions which happens during the sprint planning as event. In this event, to answer on this question, the first question is why? Why we actually work in this sprint? As a team, we are going to spend time in this sprint. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, doesn't matter, but we are going to spend time. And what will be the result? Why we will spend our precious time on the sprint? And answering the question, why is a sprint goal? One single goal for the sprint, which actually is our North Star for the sprint, something what we want to achieve. It shows the value we will deliver at the end of the sprint. After creating the goal, we start discussing about the question, what? We have a product backlog. Product backlog is ordered by the product owner. And the question is, what are the product backlog items which we are able to deliver in the sprint in order to achieve this particular sprint goal we just have created? We analyze, evaluate, select different product backlog items, discuss them, and actually result of the question, what is a list of a product backlog items we as a team select for our sprint? And we think that these product backlog items will help us to achieve our sprint goal. When the question what is answered, we go into the question how. And here we start really go deeper and discuss what are exact next steps we are going to do with these product backlog items in order to achieve our sprint goal. So actually, we really plan our next steps. What we will do tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. In order to be able to answer these 3 questions, we have some inputs in the sprint planning. The first one is a product backlog, including product goal and product backlog items. Product goal is something new what was introduced with the Scrum Guide 2020, and it's actually nothing else but a strategic goal for our product, what we want to achieve. Product backlog is a list of the product backlog items and everything what we think makes sense for our product, what we think will deliver value for our product, and what we want to implement. We need our Scrum team, and particularly we need past performance of Scrum team and capacity of Scrum team. Past performance means how we used to work, what we have achieved in the past, what we have done, what were our results. And capacity is what capacity do we have for the next sprint? What is our availability, etc., etc. We need definition of done. Definition of done is a quality gate for our team in order to deliver done, usable, and potentially releasable increments, which are also valuable. Definition of done is actually the quality gate, and with definition of done, we are able to understand how much work we need to do for our product backlog items in order to make them done. We need past increments if they exist. If this is not the first sprint planning, we already have something done. We have our past increments. And with the help of the past increments, we are able to understand what would be the next logical steps. And sprint retrospective improvements is also a good input in the retrospective. It is not a must, but it is definitely valuable to take it also. This is something what we have discovered in the past retrospective, where we want to become better. Something what we want to do in order to improve in the next sprint. Can be anything possible, something related to communication, related to process, to us as a team, doesn't matter. And a result of sprint planning, it's a sprint backlog. And sprint backlog itself contains from these three parts. Sprint goal is a part of the sprint backlog, selected product backlog items, which are a forecast of the backlog items we want to deliver in the sprint, and the actual plan, how exactly we want to deliver these product backlog items in the sprint. This happens during the sprint planning, our first event in sprint, time box to 8 hours or less. It's actually simple, but there are a lot of different misunderstandings, a lot of different misconceptions which happens during the sprint planning. And actually during the Scrum courses I give, professional Scrum Master courses, sprint planning is one of the events which has the biggest amount of questions participants ask. And I have created a list of the most popular anti-patterns, the most popular thing I see when I work with teams or I get asked by participants. And I would love to go with you through these anti-patterns and give you some tips what you can do in order to overcome these anti-patterns. First anti-pattern, no sprint goal or multiple sprint goals. We are always emphasizing sprint goals and say that this is really important. Sprint goal is a focus for us. It's our commitment. Sprint goal is our North Star, actually. And during the work in the sprint, if we need to make decisions, if we make to decide about next product backlog item, decide about what we are going to do, we need a sprint goal, because it's something we want to achieve at the end. Sprint goals are actually simple. It might be a statement, a sentence, or a metaphor which describes the value delivered at the end. We can imagine sprint goal as, for example, a situation, the sprint is over and someone comes to us, someone who actually never worked with us and someone who has absolutely no idea about the product we are building. And the someone asks us a question, hey, you have worked for 2 weeks on this product and what have you done? And now we are able to list all product backlog items which were in the backlog and just name them, or we are able to give a simple sentence which describes the value we have delivered. For example, if we are working on some online store, our sprint goal could be we gave our users ability to pay. Or it can be something like we have increased the amount of products in our catalog. These are examples of sprint goals. But it's always hard to create the sprint goal. So sometimes there are also a lot of situations where people create multiple sprint goals. People takes, for example, product backlog items as a sprint goal. We plan the sprint and we have added different product backlog items in the sprint backlog. And these backlog items are to create the architecture, to improve the list of the products, to change the color of UX, etc., etc. And this will be our sprint goals. And if someone asks what are our sprint goals, answer will be to create the architecture, to improve the product catalog, and to change the color of UX. But it's nothing else but maybe a user stories or names of our product backlog items. So what we can do? The first tip I always give is actually start with why. And this is the first question we need to ask ourselves when we enter the sprint planning. Why we want to spend 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks of our life for this sprint? What we will achieve at the end? And here we start discussions, what this might be. For example, Scrum teams comes together for the sprint planning. Product owner has product backlogs. This product backlog is ordered. And we start discussion. Developers ask, hey, product owner, we see your product backlog. We already know what is there. Everything actually clear for us. Tell us, please, what was your business idea? About what business value you thought when you ordered this product backlog? And product owner answers, yes, so if I'm thinking about our vision and our business model, we actually want to sell something in our online store, and we have already a lot of functionality, but we actually have no ability to pay. So the business idea I had, it's actually give people opportunity to pay for the stuff we sell. Developers say, okay, it makes sense, and everything what is on the top of the backlog makes sense for this. It sounds like a nice sprint goal. So, dear product owner, what would you say if our sprint goal would be give people opportunity to pay? Yeah, it makes sense. And we have now a sprint goal. And based on the sprint goal, we can look deeper on our product backlog itself and start create the product backlog items, start to pull product backlog items from the product backlog and the sprint backlog. So this actually is a second question, how? So with the help of this product backlog items, we will achieve the sprint goal. So why we are working, it's a sprint goal. How we will achieve the sprint goal with help of this product backlog items. And we might discover that we need something else, and it is not on the top of product backlog, or it is not on the product backlog at all. But if we are focused on the sprint goal, we will be able to add the stuff and create a new product backlog items if needed. And then we have this forecast, and we start split the product backlog items in action our plan. This should help to create a sprint goals, or to start working with the sprint goals and to start focusing on the sprint goals. Then we will probably have the first draft of the sprint goal, a sentence or a metaphor or something, what we actually see as a sprint goal. Or sometimes teams come up here with multiple sprint goals. And the question is how we will identify the only one important sprint goal, or how we can improve our sprint goals. It's also simple, use powerful questions. If you already have a sprint goal, a draft, a sentence, something with what you can work, start ask yourself and your team powerful questions. These questions are like, what else is important and we can do in the current sprint? How will you explain the sprint to a colleague who doesn't work on the product? If we are paying for the sprint with our own money, what work would give us highest chance to get that money back? And with help of these questions, you will start discover deeper, and you will start think about what is actually a sprint goal and something what we now have. Is it helpful or not? One of my favorite questions is number 7. If there is an end in the sprint goal, there are such sprint goals like we need to do this and this and this and this. Actually, these are multiple sprint goals. And if there is an end in the sprint goal, which would we naturally do first if we have to choose? And these questions help us and support us in improving our sprint goals. And not only improving the sprint goals, but also focusing on the sprint goals and understanding how the sprint goal is important. This question need to be answered during the sprint planning, and they need to be answered by the whole team, not only by a product owner, not only by developer, and definitely not by Scrum Master, by the whole Scrum team. And this is the way we can deal with first anti-pattern. Second anti-pattern is ignoring team past performance and capacity. And this is something I see really, really often. Mostly about capacities, sometimes about past performance. Everyone knows velocity, for example, our story points, and teams use velocity, but there are also teams who just don't use velocity and just ignore it. For example, I used to work with a team, and at the very first sprint planning, when I joined this team, they have planned and they pulled in the sprint something around, doesn't matter, 40 story points. And when I looked at their velocity for the past 12 sprints, actually the whole their history, they never were able to deliver even 20. And when I asked why you take 40 if you never ever delivered 20, the answer was, yeah, we need to have a bit of pressure. You can imagine that nothing worked from this. But there are a lot of teams who use past performance and really look on velocity, but they ignore capacity. They don't think about what will happen during the sprint. For example, we are before Christmas and we plan a sprint before Christmas based on our past performance. So we actually use our velocity, use our average past performance, and we plan our sprint. But the sprint is Christmas sprint, and instead of 2 weeks, we will have only one. So we need to plan less, but we plan exactly as at the last sprint. And at the end, we definitely don't deliver. So what we can do, use team calendar. It's really simple. Create a calendar and make this calendar absolutely transparent, where everyone in the team makes transparent for what day, how long this person is available, actually in hours. On Tuesday, for example, we have only 4 people. Sarah is not available. And on Wednesday, everyone is available for 8 hours, so full day. And during the sprint planning, this calendar is transparent and you can actually see who is available when and how much capacity you truly have. And not only during the sprint planning, keep this calendar during the whole sprint so that everyone can see who is available. When you add stuff to the sprint backlog, when you replan your sprint backlog, when you need to add new backlog items in order to achieve the sprint goal, you always know how much capacity you still have. Use your past performance. For example, here I have also a graph. It's not a velocity, it's a throughput, amount of product backlog items team deliver during the sprints. And based on this, team can visualize it. For example, for the sprint, we are we have our throughput of maximum 14, and this is how we are going to plan. So they can add 14 different backlog items here and work. And you don't have to feel it during the sprint planning itself. You hold it transparent during the whole sprint, and you always see how much capacity you still have for this sprint as a team. It's really helpful visualization, which opens and makes this transparent for the team, because in a lot of situations, people dive so deep in the planning and start thinking about plans, about backlog items, that they just forget about the stuff. And holding this transparent and simple helps. What else? Anti-pattern number 3. I call it task-driven. It has 2 parts. And first part is a question which a lot of Scrum Master asks at the end of the sprint planning. Does everyone has work to do? And developers say, yes, we have. And everyone goes working. And the sprint planning itself here works like we pull backlog items in order to fulfill time everyone has during the sprint. And every team member needs to have enough work to be able to work during the whole sprint. And you face here situations where actually you don't have enough backlog items for the sprint goal, or you have not enough backlog items for participants, you don't have enough product backlog items for all developers, and you might face situations where, for example, your front-end developer is completely busy and your back-end developer has only one task, and your back-end developer cannot do anything else because in order to continue, we need front-end work to be done. And you start to come up with different things, different tasks, different backlog items, and sometimes you create even useless things just in order to fill the time. And at the end, when you plan everything, you fix your sprint backlog and never change it, never come back, and everything what is in the sprint backlog need to be done. What does it mean during the work in the sprint? If everyone has enough work to do for themselves, they will be focused on this. And this will be a work people do. This means that every developer will come to office or will start work at home, open your tool you use, Jira, U-Track, Trello, whatever, opens backlog, clicks on filter, show only my tasks, get a list of his own tasks, and start working on it. And that's it. This person don't care what someone else do. This person don't care what else happening. This person is focused only on own task, on own performance, and probably for performing well on the own task, this person will get bonus. And this means that actually your team has no ownership about the team itself, and your team has absolutely no ownership about the product. And they just do whatever someone says. And if you fix your sprint backlog, you are not able to change anything. And if, for example, product owner discovers something much more important than what we have now, or something else needs to be done, or we need to change something, or I don't know, we need to speak with a customer, we need to get a fast feedback or whatever, we can't, because if you will ask your developers to do something else, the answer you will get is, we cannot do this, we have already planned everything, we have no time, we can take it, if something go in, something need to go out, there are no capacity, etc., etc. So you absolutely lose your flexibility. And at the end, during the sprint, you have a bunch of people who are focused only on their work and nothing else. And you have a sprint backlog which don't allow you any flexibility. Sometimes teams and organization even hire people who make sure that everyone has enough work to do. Not just Scrum Master, but some kind of project manager who make sure that every developer and every team member actually has something to do. And the main focus is keeping people busy. And if you focus on keeping people busy, everything what you get is a bunch of busy people. So what we can do here? Focus on value first. Plan pair, group, and teamwork as a priority. Plan around working as a team. I had once a discussion and a Scrum Master asked me, hey, Jack, how much product backlog items should we plan in sprint? My answer was, okay, yeah, I don't know. How many people do you have? Yeah, in my team, there are 8 developers. Okay, then plan the maximum of 4. Why? Because it's the way you can be sure that it's minimum as 2 persons working on the one product backlog item. Because pair work, group work, or teamwork, make sure that your teams work together, that your team is focused on value and not on their own stuff, that you increase quality and you actually grow your people. Yeah, and your team members acquire new skills, new understandings, they learn new stuff, and in the future they can support each other. And this is the way to cross-functionality, where the whole team gets ownership and accountability about the product and not about their own job. Start with goals and not product backlog items. Situations where people get something only for themselves happens when you start planning the product backlog items. You take just backlog items one by one, you pull it into the sprint, and that's it. There are Scrum Masters who just pull stuff and say, okay, first product backlog item, it is about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Who takes this? And the developer say, I will take this, I will work on this. Okay, Scrum Master open the ticket in Jira and write the name. Jira has even a field assign people. Scrum Master can directly assign people. And at the end, everyone has something to do. But if you will start focus on the goals, and your question will be not which backlog items we need to deliver during the sprint, but what goal we need to achieve. The discussion you will get will lead you to more collaborative work. For example, if we would say that our goal is to upsell our most popular items on the checkout page of our shop, or increase upselling rate to up to 20%. Then you will start a discussion about how to connect and figure out what are the most popular the most popular selling items in your shop are, how to identify them, how to connect it with the customer, how to make sure that the customer actually gets something what is interesting in. Maybe you will discover that you will need to work with different departments. And under this discussion, where you start your discussion focusing on value, the work needs to be done in order to achieve this is combined. This means people need to work together and figure out how. What else? Flow trumps resource utilization. There are a lot of organizations which really need resource utilization. It's absolutely true. A lot of companies measure their success based on utilization, billability, rates or how much time you spend with a customer, for example. A lot of companies measure time, how long people work on something, people do time tracking, etc., etc. What is actually valid for organization, yeah? But we can focus on on flow first, and then on resource utilization, because we are able to achieve flow in order to make sure that people have enough work. If we will take a look only, if we will focus only on resource utilization and only on keeping people busy, our focus is that everyone has something to do. And we don't ask ourselves if the person as a team gets actually the work done, if we get a value at the end of the sprint, and if we get something delivered. We just focus on everyone has something to do. If we will focus on flow, we will see that we need to make sure that the value is delivered to customer and is delivered as fast as possible and as effective as possible. And as soon as we will establish the flow where the value flow through our team to the customer, through our workflow to the customer, and we will stabilize this, we will be able to increase this and make it faster, 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 faster. It's simple Kanban, it's simple flow, and there are a lot of books about this, and you can discover flow deeper. And do not pack the sprint, stay flexible. You don't need to plan the sprint completely. You don't need to plan 100% of the time, or you don't have to plan your sprint backlog fully. Stay flexible. At the end of the sprint planning, everything what you need is a sprint goal and work for the next couple of days. And it's enough. You know complexity. Yeah? If you're thinking about working in Scrum, Agile, you know complexity. And yes, world is complex and life is complex, and everything change, and it's changed really fast. That's why we are working with iterative incremental delivery in order to be able to implement these feedback loops and react. But within the sprint, there are also time, and with this time, everything change. If you pack your sprint fully and you make sure that you have enough work from the start of the sprint till the end of the sprint, congratulations, you have a smaller waterfall. Stay flexible. Things might change during the sprint. Keep focus on your sprint goal and stay flexible. And also remember that if people speak about my task, about my work, about my job, about my stuff, this means actually that they have their own backlog. If you will imagine it as a workflow, you will have somewhere a column for developer A, and he will have a waiting line or a queue with the tasks. And that's it. It's just my personal backlog. But there can be only one. And there are golden rule in Scrum: one product owner, one product backlog. So how we can have multiple backlogs then? It doesn't work. It's impossible. When people start working only on their tasks, this is only their focus and nothing else. And as soon as they will finish everything what they have in their own queue, in their own backlog, that's it. They will ask product owner for more work, or they will just make work visibility in order to relax till the end of the sprint. So don't focus on keeping people busy. This is nothing else but bottlenecks. If we will think about theory of systems, we will also know that the system itself is exactly so fast as the slowest part of the system. So if you will have a slow developer who is focused only on his own work, this will be a regulation of the speed of your delivery. Focus on value first. What else? Anti-pattern number 4, refinement. I think I have saw this anti-pattern 100% time I used to work with teams as a Scrum Master or with teams as a coach. And this actually means that we refine in the sprint planning. We start a sprint planning where we take the first product backlog item on the top and we start refine this. Product owner explain it, product owner tell what is it about, and people ask questions, and is everything clear? Yes, no. Do we need some details? Yes, no, etc., etc. And you try to prepare these product backlog items to enter the sprint. At some point of time, developers say, okay, we have everything what we need, and we are able to take these backlog items in the sprint, and they put it into the sprint backlog in their forecast and take the next one. And this is the way the whole sprint planning works. Which also okay if this is your first sprint planning, because you never worked together probably, you never saw each other probably. Maybe it's the very first day of the team working on the product after the team kickstart, and that's it. People know about business strategy, people know about vision, mission, and goals, but never saw the backlog items itself. It's okay. But if this is your second sprint, then you just lose time. There are an activity in Scrum called product backlog refinement. And the goal of this activity is to bring the product backlog items for the upcoming sprint in a kind of ready state. So do it during the refinement and not during the sprint planning. Because if you are doing this during the sprint planning, first thing happens, you lose focus on the sprint goal, because you don't know which product backlog item corresponds to it's a sprint goal you just created, and you don't know how to proceed here. The second is it takes time, and you have a time box. And actually you have a time pressure, and you can skip something, you can misunderstand something. Number 3, what happens is probably you need to dive deeper, you need to discover somewhere something else, you don't get all the information you need, but you just say that it is ready because you need to plan something. So don't refine during the sprint planning, don't waste your time, and don't make things more complicated as they already are. I always say that the better your product backlog refinement is, the more easily is your why and what part. So if you have done a good product backlog refinement, if you invested time and you as a team really understand what other backlog items are about, they are small, they actually are ready for the sprint, then when you start your sprint planning and you have identified your sprint goal, you just pull them, and that's it. And if you work with a mature team who do product refinements well and who understand the value and concepts of the sprint goal, the part why and part what of the sprint planning may take maybe 15-20 minutes maximum. And everything else you can invest in the part how. But don't go too detailed, because I know teams who understand this too deep and they go too detailed in the product backlog refinements, and they try to figure out just everything possible. And to figure out everything is impossible in the complex world, because we don't know what happens, we don't know how things works, and there are always uncertainty. And teams who go too detailed. They actually don't want to take the product backlog items in the sprint because they don't have enough information. And at the end, this might emerge in some kind of definition of ready, contracts between product owner and developers, or some list of criteria which almost impossible to fulfill in order to get something to start in the sprint. What else do we have here? Anti-pattern number 5. There are no how. People don't discuss how they will actually build backlog items. Just just push product backlog items in the sprint and go. Product backlog is there. Product owner has already ordered it. Product owner knows what is important or not, what's on top, what's on the bottom. And product owner just push stuff in the sprint backlog, says this is something what's need to be done, clear, okay, you don't have to spend time on anything else, you have to work on this anyway, so you will figure out everything during the sprint. Just commit yourself and go working. And developers say, yes, okay, we take whatever your product owner gives us, and yes, everything needs to be done, so we commit ourselves and we will deliver this. Yeah, absolutely. And at the end, people figure out that something doesn't work, and they don't know something, don't understand something, and actually don't deliver. Sometimes it also happens like we had a previous sprint and we were not able to complete all forecast. Not all product backlog items are done. There are a couple of backlog items left. So we just pull them in the next sprint because they are still important as we assume, and we continue working on this. What you can do here, because these anti-patterns bring you to people who have no ownership, and I call it something like a code factory. Just a group of people who sit and write a code and develop stuff. But I assume that you need a product developers, people who truly develop valuable, usable, done products. First of all, stop taking the work from people away. A lot of plannings look like picture on the left. There are one person, mostly Scrum Master, sharing his screen. On the screen is a Jira with a product backlog, pre-filled in the sprints. Scrum Master push stuff from this product backlog into the sprint backlog. During this push, check with developers if it's okay, and developers of course say okay because everything needs to be done. And maybe they ask some questions sometimes, maybe not. But actually everything what developers do, they are sitting in front of their laptops and chatting with the Scrum Master. Sometimes they even don't turn the cameras on now, so you can assume they even don't sit in front of the laptop, but in the Instagram, Facebook, or play some games on their phone. So stop taking this job away and give the doing to developers. They have also laptops, they also can share screens, they have access to tools, they can do it. And you as a Scrum Master or as a coach or as a product owner, you're there to support them and help them to create the best possible plan. So stop taking this work away and let them work. At the best, visualize everything and stop using these tools. Yeah, this Jira, Trello, etc., whatever you use, stop using it in the planning. You can always update it before, after, whatever, doesn't matter. Stop using it during this event. Visualize stuff. If you are all in one room, use a sticky notes. Product owner brings product backlog on the sticky notes. Visualize the board. If you are using If you're working remotely today, then you can use any kind of tools. There are Miro, there are Mural, there are Google Jamboards, collaboration tools which you can use in order to visualize things and allow people to work with the sticky notes. Create a team wall where you have sprint calendar, sprint goal, product backlog, where you have a place for them to create their plan. You can add something like individual wishes. For example, you have a developer who wants to work on something he never done before. And this is developer's wish. And developer put it on the wish board, and other team members can help. You can create something like advertisement board. For example, someone wants to do a pair programming, or someone wants to learn something, or someone wants to teach someone something. And people can put these things on this advertisement board. And it is also transparent during the sprint. And at any point of time, people see what are the wishes, what are the advertisement, and can support each other. Because with doing this, you give them ownership. They actually take something in their own hands and move stuff. This means they own this. This means they can decide about this. And this means at least discussion between your developers and product owner, between your developers and Scrum Master, between developers themselves. And this pooling things will start receiving questions. And as soon as your team start asking right questions and look for right answers, they actually plan. So, 2 more anti-patterns. These are final anti-patterns. They are not so often seen, but they are there. A sprint planning without a product owner. So just event between Scrum Master and developers, or only developers, and product owner has no time to be there because product owner is too busy. And it means actually that your product owner don't care about the product. And product owner don't care about what you do. And maybe at some point of time during the sprint planning, product owner will think, okay, wait, there are some important things. And he will come to developers and see that they work on something completely different. And they cannot do anything else because there are no more capacity, for example. And this means your product owner will be surprised by the result. And at the sprint review, a product owner will say like, okay, what is this? What have you done? Because I assume that product owner who is not coming to sprint planning also is not there during the sprint. So product owner must visit sprint planning. Product owner is part of the Scrum team. Product owner is there. In order to explain product owner why, you can show value. You explain product owner what is the value behind the sprint planning. The best case, just wait until product owner will be surprised at the end of the sprint a couple of times, and speak with your product owner where you say, hey, product owner, if you don't want to be surprised at the end of the sprint with the stuff developers do, come to the sprint planning and let's plan together. There are an opposite, a product owner driven sprint planning. It's a sprint planning where product owner decides, product owner tells what to do, product owner even dictates velocity, capacity, past performance, and future performance, and developers just agree. In these situations, I always say that if product owner is so sure and know exactly what to do and how to do, then product owner can work during the sprint, and I will take developers and we will go into the next bar and have a beer. Or we can make a remote Zoom party with whiskey. Because product owner know everything, why product owner needs a team. And then product owner then can do everything by your own. So don't allow it to be product owner driven. always have discussions, always use empirical data. You have your past performance, you have your capacity, and you have a bench of smart, creative thinking people. Discuss everything and work together. Don't forget, you are a team, you are a Scrum team. And within this team, you have 3 accountabilities: Scrum Master, Product Owner, and developers. And there are no boss, no manager, and no whoever tells us what to do. Scrum team is self-managed. This means they decide what to do, how, and when. Actually, this is it for my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope I have delivered you value. I will now stop the presentation and you can unmute yourself and ask any questions you have.